Hi everyone, this is Callie. Welcome. Today I am sharing a shaker card using this Morning Garden floral frame. Most of the products here are from the Cheering for You release from Simon Says Stamp, and I hope you'll enjoy watching all these products come together as I create this shaker card. So here's a look at the Morning Garden floral frame. It's got two pieces here. The frame itself has all the arrangements already there, and then we have a set of dies that will cut out flowers so that you can overlay them on top, and that way it'll help you get more dimension as well as not worry about colors bleeding into each other while you're ink blending. So here I've die cut the frame using white cardstock, and I've also die cut all those extra loose florals with white cardstock. I'll set those aside for now because we're going to work on the frame first. Now if you want to make it easy on yourself, you can die cut this frame in green. I like my frame to be white, so what I'm going to do is mask off the frame from the flowers on the inside of the frame so that I can ink blend all the greenery. I'm using some pre-cut masking tape here using Post-it tape, but you can use any masking paper that you have and just cut them into strips so that you can mask off that frame. I'm going to use two different colors of green. When you have the ability to add more color, that's what I prefer to do. So that's why I didn't die cut this in green for overlaying. If you choose to die cut this frame in green, you can always add a secondary or more saturated color using ink as well. I'm starting off with this fern here and the spiral stem that you see, and I'm doing it in mist, and it's a dark teal that's really pretty, and I think it provides a bit more contrast than using a similar green throughout. When I'm done with the bottom corner here, I'll move two of my side masking tapes to the top so that I can do the other corner with the same fairway green. I should also mention that if you prefer not to mask and ink blend, you can always use another color medium of your choice like Copics. Now I'm going to set that frame aside and use a cut piece of Tim Holtz grip mat. I'm going to remove the carrier and stick it directly onto my glass mat, and it's going to hold down all my loose floral die cuts. And then I'll be able to ink blend them. So I'm ink blending these 4-petal flowers here using some taffy ink. Then I'll move on to guava for the 4 petals that you see on the left top hand corner. I'm going to use a different color for every type of flower that I have on this frame because I really want to bring lots of colors to it. So I'll use a different pink here. I'm using blush for the 5-petal flower at the bottom left hand corner. And I'm using a small blending brush, so I'm trying to focus all that ink color onto the center of the flowers. So when I got to this other round one here at the bottom, I'm using a round detail blending brush, and that'll help me concentrate the color in the center a little bit better. And then all these centers here, they are etched into the flowers that they're supposed to go on, so that's super helpful. And I ink blended those in yellow. Then I'll move it all off that grip mat, clean it off, put my carrier sheet back on it, and then back into my storage pocket where I can keep it lint-free for next time. Now I can go ahead and piece my flowers over the top of this first frame. I've added some glue, and then I'm going to go ahead and add the coordinating flowers right on top of those pieces, and you can see that it hides all those ink imperfections perfectly. Now as I piece everything, I am using my heavy acrylic block or a paper weight to hold down the flowers as I continue to piece on other flowers on this frame. I'm going to finish up here by adding the 2 larger flowers onto this frame, and then we can work on those tiny little floral centers. I'm adding the star one at the 2 bottom, and then we know that the 4 are going to be for these little coral flowers at the top because they're etched in, so you can see that they're supposed to be there. Now I'm going to flip this frame over, and we're going to add adhesive to the back so that we can turn this into a shaker window. Anytime I make a shaker card now, I am going to use red line tape if I can, because I think that it's the strongest adhesive that I can use to ensure that my shaker card never falls apart, particularly when I'm adhering cardstock to acetate, so mainly for the window portion. I also cut little strips of red line tape for the back of the flowers because I really wanted it to hang on nice and sturdy, and then I'll remove the backing and I'll add dots of glue onto this fern where there was no space for me to really add that red line tape. And then I'm using some lightweight clear acetate that comes in half sheets or full sheets. Then for perfect alignment, I'm going to start at a corner, and then I'm going to start to release the paper very slowly as if I were to put a screen protector on a cell phone, and then let it collapse and adhere itself to the frame. And then because I had some acetate hanging off the sides of the frames, I'm just going to trim that off and make it nice and clean. Now to add some walls for the side of my shaker card, I'm going to cut out some more frames. I've cut out 5 additional frames here, and as you can see, it's not from regular white cardstock. You can use a heavy cardstock. I like to use package inserts that I've saved. I don't like to just throw them out or recycle them. I like to save them for things like this, where I can add volume or dimension to a card that you can't see. So if you have any of those lying around, this is a great way to repurpose it. Now to make these frames nice and sturdy, I'm using liquid adhesive and stacking them together. If you don't want to do all this die cutting and clipping apart and stacking together, you can always use 3D foam strips. Those are also great for shaker cards, or if you don't even want to mess with any bulk, you can do an infinity shaker card and just wrap some acetate around a background panel and then adhere this frame right over the top. So I have my acrylic block holding those frames down to keep them nice and flat while they dry. And then on the back of the frame, I'm using more red line tape because again, we're adhering cardstock to acetate. So I'll remove the backing off the acetate, and I'm only going to do a little less than halfway on each of those strips. And that will help me line up the card without committing fully to laying it down before I know that it's nice and lined up. So when I'm sure it's nice and lined up, I'll go ahead and peel away the rest of that backing. And that'll help me ensure that my frame is nice and flat and everything is stuck together really well. So there we have 6 total layers of cardstock for a shaker window. Now that the shaker window is ready, we can work on a background for that shaker window. Here is a look at the new photopolymer old letter stamp. We used to have it in a cling rubber stamp, and now you have the option of buying either. So I just wanted to show you that they are the same stamps, but now you have the option of buying the material that you prefer in red rubber or photopolymer. I'm using the photopolymer one today because I like to be able to see through where I stamp. And I'm using latte ink, which is the lightest brown color that we have. And when I first created this card for the release, I had stamped off first, and I found that the letters didn't show up very well when I stamped off. So I just used my microfiber cloth and dabbed off some of that extra ink. Here's the first card I made. You can see that you can barely see the old letter writing in the background of that shaker window. So this works out a little bit better for me on my second attempt. I really loved that project so much that I decided to recreate it for this video for you. You're probably wondering why I'm stamping this again. I'm stamping it with a watermark ink, and I'm going to emboss it with clear embossing powder to trap that latte ink in. I don't want to compromise the color and the crispness of the old letter writing in the back, so I am embossing it to trap that ink in, so when I go to ink blend with other colors or adding other mediums on top, that stays crisp and its integrity is held. Now to add color to the background, I am using some residual ink from my ink blending tools. That means I'm not adding additional ink onto those bristles and just using what's there to add some coordinating colors onto the background to give this background more color. And because we embossed those letters, I'm just using my microfiber cloth to clean off any excess ink that's sitting on top of those letters. Now I'm going to use some distressed spritz. If you haven't seen these in action yet, they're so much fun. They just add some mica pearl shine to your projects, a bit of color, but not too striking of colors. And I'm just going to splatter it and give it a bit of texture in the background, kind of distresses it a little bit. But because these are pigmented a little bit, it's kind of fun to see that color show up as splatters as well. The colors I'm using are Fossilized Amber, which is more of a gold to me, picked raspberry, and some wilted violet. So that just adds great texture to the background, and I did heat set that a little bit, and the paper does curl, so I put down my acrylic block over it again to keep it nice and straight. So now we're ready to adhere our frame to that background. I'm using the It's No Secret embossing tool, and I'm gonna go around the edges on the inside of the frame, and that'll just keep confetti and sequins from attaching to the sides and corners if there's any loose adhesive that sticks out from the frame. So especially if you're using some dry adhesive like double-sided tape and stuff like that, you'll want to neutralize that adhesive before you stick it on. I adhered my background panel to a card base to make sure that I have a nice and flat and sturdy base for my frame to lay on top of. Then I'll use the new Garden Blooms embellishments and Summer Sunset embellishments to add to the background before I adhere down the frame. And just using my fingers, I want to make sure that the confetti and embellishments that I put in the shaker are in one layer. That way, if your frame isn't thick enough, that the confetti can still slide around without overlapping each other and then getting stuck in the shaker frame. Now to finish my card, I am stamping and embossing a sentiment in gold. This sentiment is from the Graceful flower set and made its debut in the August 2024 card kit. So hopefully you've seen at least 3 projects from me on social media using that card kit. It's a great kit and has great sentiments. Now to make everything look the same on the sentiment as does the background, I ink blended with residual ink a little bit more pink, and I sprayed it with some distressed spritz before die cutting. I used some red line tape again to adhere that sentiment, and then I finished with 2 large gold sequins for the centers of these pink flowers here that are bigger on the front of the card. And that finishes my shaker card for today. I love a full-size shaker card where all of the elements are floating so freely on the inside. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you're interested in any of the products that I use, be sure to check out the links below, as well as on the coordinating blog post where everything will be linked for your convenience. Thank you so much for stopping by and have a wonderful day. Bye everyone.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.